Have you ever aligned your life to where you felt nothing was working out in your favor? Nothing was working out the way that you hoped or expected. And we tried over and over again, and we weren't getting the results that we wanted. We weren't getting the feelings that we wanted. We weren't bringing in the people that we wanted and what we ultimately desired. Through my journey, I have experienced a tremendous amount of pain, a tremendous amount of self sabotaging behaviors and cognitive processes and emotions and feelings that have ultimately left me questioning why I did those things in the first place. And oftentimes, we don't realize what we're doing, and oftentimes, I didn't realize what I was doing. When I looked at my life at that point on a broader spectrum, I realized that nothing was working out for me, nothing was in my favor, and the people that I were attracting were individuals that weren't aligned with my feelings and emotions and ultimately where I wanted to end up in life. In a sense, I was denying my true identity and resisting. There was a point in my life, about 2 years, where I hit an extreme form of depression. I wasn't clinically diagnosed, but I turned to alternative ways of coping. I completely unplugged myself from the world. I stopped working. I completely devoted my time and attention and identity around a relationship where I felt I was worthy and where I felt important in someone else's life. But my other side of my personality has always been driven and motivated. But at this point in my life, I had hit rock bottom. I was extremely depressed, and I was only experiencing one form of my true self, which was being in a completely dependent relationship. I learned a lot through this experience, and I realized the feelings that I were going through were really, really unbearable and really uncomfortable. And the longer that I kept my mind in those emotional states, the more depressed I would become, the more out of control I felt. And I just felt like I was unworthy. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know my place in the world. And like I said, most of my identity was wrapped in this relationship, and it defined who I was. And it was no one else's fault but my own, and I had to learn the hard way and take responsibility for my actions and really move on from this experience. And growing up as a child, as I've expressed in my other videos, I was constantly told that I wasn't good enough in one form or another. It wasn't a deliberate, you're not good enough, but the way life was set up for me, the feedback that I would get from my father at the time, and the experiences that I had gone through in my childhood were not very supportive. And for those of you that know my history, they can understand, and they do, and some people can actually relate to it. We've traveled down similar paths, and to all those kindred spirits out there, just stay strong. There's always hope, and I'm so fortunate to be around you and your presence, and such beautiful souls that I feel so privileged. Knowing my history, a small snippet of my history, being in this kind of household, I never thought that I was capable of doing anything. Being in this relationship for X amount of years, I decided to snap out of this depression by moving forward and taking action. And how I did that was I got a job, and I made that my focus, and I started interacting with people, and I transformed into a different being at that time, because when I wasn't working, I was in a world of completely self-absorption. I was learning, yes, but it was, of course, focused more so on my needs and how my needs can be met. And it was just a really, really low time. So one way that I decided to snap out of it was to get a job. And at this point, I started to to build up my confidence interacting with people. It gave me a change of scenery. It made me smile more, it made me interact more. And this job was incredible because we had a ton of teamwork and just positive vibes all around, which was, of course, a very, very different transition from being depressed to going in a very positive and teamwork environment. It wasn't until about 6 months into my job or 5 months into my job that the general manager at the job that I was working at, the restaurant, came up to me and said, "Would you ever consider being a manager?" I felt so so valued and so cherished. And not only that, I felt as if someone for the first time in my life believed in myself. Someone outside of my own head, someone that was away from my household, someone that didn't attach specific identities to me of how I was brought up, how I was raised, saw me specifically in that environment for how I was working. And I was busting my butt at that place for 6 months because that's if you're going to do something, you're going to work hard for it and you're going to do it right? So that's how, what I believe in. When I really put my mind to something, I just work hard and I try to achieve it as much as possible. And we skid off the road, and we eventually find our path, though, and that's how I've always been, and I think how most people are. We find our ways. So after some time working there, he asked, "What would you consider being a manager?" My whole perception of myself and my self-worth completely turned upside down. How in the world can a few words change another person's life? It changed mine, and for the first time I felt competent, I felt able. And even though in my past I had done actions that have pushed me through life and had helped me excel, I still felt this nagging drag because everything that I was told and everything that I thought that I was only reinforced in the environment that I was growing up in. Stepping away from that environment, it took some time to adjust, and hearing another person say that you are capable and you are worthy, that I believe in you, was a pivotal time in my life. After this time, I took a management position and I moved to Santa Monica. I've always been pulled towards the beach, and it was seems like everything was in my favor at this point. I was excited. At this point I wanted to open up my own cafe, start my own business, and I took this position as a way to learn, gain experience behind the scenes with inventory, dealing with customers, and everything that encompasses being a manager in the restaurant business. It wasn't until I had a beautiful soul, which is now my best friend, really have me take charge. She really instilled a lot of responsibility with my actions. She believed in my opinions, and she felt that I could really improve the restaurant. And hearing a second outside perspective of actually someone saying that I believe in you, I feel like I can put the restaurant in your hands, you are competent, you are capable, was another boost to my ego and confidence. But I still wasn't believing it. I still wasn't harnessing it. I didn't feel it because of all the baggage that I carried with me and this identity that I had for my whole life. So about 2 years ago, I moved to the west side in Santa Monica, and I had a really weird experience. I noticed that I would always put myself in ironic and bizarre self-sabotaging positions. I remember having an experience where I was in the women's bathroom. I was supposed to be cleaning, tidying up the area for the restaurant. And I remember flushing the toilet, and going to pick something up and thinking in my head, if I bend down, I know the water is going to splash on me. I know that this disgusting toilet water is going to splash up on my face. And if I know this, why am I letting myself do this? At that moment, I realized that I truly believed that this is what I deserved. I truly believed what I was told my entire life. I truly believed that this is where I belong, that I belong to be in gunk, in garbage, in a pit of emptiness, in a pit of negativity. And everything that I had been told completely backfired at that moment and brought some sort of enlightenment. And I thought, where else have I done this in my life? And it wasn't until that experience did I realize that I was doing self-sabotaging behaviors and actions and decisions for myself. I would subconsciously and deeply set myself up to where I knew that I was going to get in trouble. I wasn't deliberately putting myself in those positions, but I put myself in a way where I had no other way of getting blamed. There was only one way, and that way was to get blamed or to be at fault for something, because that's everything that I knew. That's how I received love. That's how I knew love was, by to mess up and get punished for it, to make a mistake and get yelled at for it. And subconsciously and deep down, this was my form of love. And getting into later adulthood, I realized this isn't healthy, this isn't normal. And for most of us out there that have this thought process, that have this rationale, that can't quite pinpoint where the anger comes from, where the depression comes from, where the sadness comes from, the first thing that I ask and I recommend and suggest and offer is to recognize it. See where it's coming from. If you look at the broad spectrum of your life and you can write down everything on a piece of paper, would you see yourself as decreasing in life and happiness and goals and achievements and fulfillment and purpose? Or do you see yourself slightly inclining with slight bumps in the road, which are completely natural? And do you see yourself excelling? 2 days ago, I felt as if I wasn't moving along quick enough. I felt like I wasn't going after what I wanted. And even though I'm planting the seed, and even though I know that I'm on this path to where I want to be, I know that I'm eventually going to get there, but I don't see the progress yet. I don't see it in my day-to-day. And other people tell me that they see it, but I don't. I can understand it, and I can kind of feel it, but I don't really see it. You know, this is where we are our own worst critics, right? And where we need to trust ourselves intuitively and really believe in ourselves and have faith in our own decisions and actions. So 2 days ago, I wrote down this progress sheet. It was as if there was a graph, and I put my age on the bottom of the graph, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I'm 27 now, and I put happiness on a scale. Happiness is relative to you. How you ultimately feel about your life and your wellness and your spirituality and your well-being is subjective. It's up to you, but for me, I put that on a 0 to 10 point scale and my years, and I pointed out when I was 18, how happy was I on a scale from 0 to 10? I bubbled that in. When I was 19, how happy do I remember being when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I noticed my sharpest decline was when I was 22 and 23, and I was super unhappy. I was transforming into what my purpose was, being in a relationship that I wasn't fulfilled in, moving too quickly in that relationship, not listening to that inner voice. I was super depressed. Everything from my childhood was resurfacing, and I was trying to find meaning and what it all meant to have this childhood tie into who I am now, and should I forget it? Should I move on? Should I ignore it? Should I so many questions came about, and it wasn't until I took charge and listened to that inner voice, that always knowing, trusting, beautiful inner voice that I knew would always guide me. And it is guiding me now today in a positive direction. And I want to express to you and tell you that no matter what you go through, whatever you experience, there's always going to be hope. There's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel. We have to trust that inner voice. We have to, and it does involve risks, and it does involve a lot of change, and it does involve losing people. But what life would it be if you were living a lie? What fulfillment would you have if everything looked good on the external? How would that feel to you? What would that mean to you? At some point, that's going to break, because that's not true to your nature. When you defy all the laws of nature and who you are, you tamper with it, and it becomes damaging, and it destroys. Same thing that we're doing with the environment. When we tamper it too much and we put all these chemicals and pesticides and hormones into the environment, we tamper with it. We may get a result, and it may look good on the outside, but we're messing with what is natural and what the natural process is. What I realized along my journey about self-sabotaging, it spilled out into everything imaginable. Spilled out into my relationships. I didn't know why I was dating the people that I was. I had so much hope and care for these people that I wanted them to be so into what I was doing. I wanted them to see the world the way that I was seeing. I wanted to change them in a sense. I admired them externally and internally, but there was still a disconnect between us two, and I did everything I could to try to make that come together. But I realized the more that we try to force things, and the more that we try to change others, the more unfulfilled we will be. Things have to be fluid in your life, and they have to be balanced, and they have to, in a sense, be effortless. They do. If we want to achieve goals and gain those things, those are going to take a lot of planning and effort, and being genuine and mindful about your actions. But the more that we resist things, and the more that we avoid and find things that are restrictive, the more that our bodies change, the more that our minds change, and we just don't have a good feeling about it. Does not necessarily mean that these people are terrible people. It just doesn't align with us and where we are at that point in our lives. What I learned from my experience with self-sabotaging was that I tied it completely to my identity. My identity was a self-sabotager. I thought that I was worthless. I thought that I couldn't bring anything to anyone. I couldn't offer anything. And why did I believe this? Because I was told this my whole life. But as an adult, I knew that I should have taken responsibility, but I still felt it. Everything is a feeling in life. Everything that you move about is a feeling. We can bring logic and rationale into feelings and intuition, but everything derives from a feeling. How something makes us feel, how someone makes us feel, how a song makes us feel. We don't really look at the music notes unless you're a musician or an artist. You don't really look at the music notes unless you want to mimic the music. You listen to how it makes you feel. You watch a movie because you want it to inspire you. You want it to move you. And it's just, we sometimes don't realize how we align our lives that are so against what we think that we are. We align our lives in a way that we think we are a certain way because we have been told that our whole lives. But in order to find true happiness, true meaning in your life, it is so important to really shut out the outside world and zone into what you desire out of life, zone into what you want. Of course, we have such beautiful and influential and lovely friends and beautiful parents that want the best for us. They do. But ultimately, they have a specific vision of you as well. But only you know your day-to-day, and only you know what you're capable of doing deep down. When I hit this point of being my lowest and in my depression, I remember having a conversation with someone that I really cared about at the time, and I was just so fed up. I just remember being so upset and bothered about my negative thinking and where I was coming from, that I was just like, it's so weird. I don't believe in myself. I can't move forward. I'm so unhappy. I don't have the willpower to believe in myself. And at that time, knowing that those words came out of my mouth only a couple years ago is frightening. And I learned a lot from it, but it's also frightening to me because now I truly believe that I can do anything that I want, and I truly believe that you can do anything that you want. But the mindset that I was coming from, how was my life then? I wasn't fulfilled. And I was only making myself believe that I was incapable. I was only making myself believe that I was in a terrible state, a terrible place in my life. And what we do sometimes is incredible as human beings, how we see the bad in things all the time, how we let the drama take over, how we let dramatic friends run our lives and people. And I slowly shifted away from those mind frames and thoughts, and I had to literally isolate myself because this was necessary for me. I had to get into my own thoughts and my own actions and be responsible for myself and place no blame on anyone else but myself. So I got out of a relationship that I wasn't fulfilled in. And he no longer was someone that I can blame, right? He no longer was someone, the relationship was something that I couldn't place so much weight on. It was only me. I was using the relationship as an excuse why I couldn't do certain things. But now that I was out of it, my true self was coming about. And some of us may not want to put ourselves in those extreme cases, and it's not necessary. But for me, it was. For me, I needed a dramatic shift. I needed something that was going to shake me to the core. I needed to lose something that was so comfortable but wasn't a part of who I was. And after much struggle and time and patience and pain and regret and beauty and happiness, I realized ultimately that I needed to get a hold of my life and I needed to take charge. And it is understood that in the psychology community, there are specific theories that in your early 30s, it is a transformative time because you are solely looking at your identity and who you are and what your purpose is. And as you get older, you fine-tune these things. It becomes more clear of what it is that you want, and you build off that. So I do agree with the theories of Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow about self-actualization, and during specific times of your life, you do have these huge spurts. Just like puberty is a physiological rapid growth, so is cognitive. If you can see in your life, what do you do in your life that is self-sabotaging? We may think that this is a negative place. Oh, I don't self-sabotage. I don't do anything that's going to put me in a difficult spot or make things difficult for myself or make excuses. But we are human, and we do. We can relate this to maybe owning a business when um, we know that we are capable, but we get put in a difficult situation and we pull ourselves out because we are fearful. We don't want to handle the situation. What does that do to us ultimately? We are self-sabotaging our expertise, our knowledge, and everything that we've built up to this point. We tie most of our happiness, our optimism, our transcendental states, our yoga mentality, our healthy outlook, our fitness, our nutrition as our identities. And I can honestly say the more that we align our identities to positivity, to growth, to nourishment, to empowerment, to zoning in on yourself, to breath, to loving yourself, to loving others, versus depression, hurting others, not making my partner feel a certain way, taking and taking and taking. When that becomes your world, that is all you know and that is all you experience. These shifts are slow. I always say this in my videos. These shifts are slow, but you have to really zone in on who you are and what you want. And the struggle and the battle and the self-sabotaging, as ironic as it sounds, that you go through, please keep the mentality that there is hope, and please keep the mentality that you're only going to get stronger and build from this. If we keep on thinking that we're self-sabotaging and we're going down and down and down and down and down, we're going to go down and down and down. Keep that head up. Always, always, always keep that head up. Believe in yourself, even when you don't believe in yourself, even when no one believes in you and you feel that energy. Reflect back on your time where you felt the most powerful. I want you to put yourself in that feeling, in that emotion, in that experience to where you were feeling powerful and where you believed in yourself. Because I promise you there were times, and that will slowly build up your confidence and your worth and who you are to the core. Who you are to the core is not what everyone imposes on you and what you were told that you were as a child or what you were meant to believe. Labels are incredibly damaging, I believe, when we are young. If you label someone as unintelligent, as athletic, as bright, as stupid, as mentally retarded, as shy when you're kids, we hold these identities. And this is where I see the fault in psychology. I don't believe in labeling those individuals as what they are. It may help clinical psychologists and psychiatrists guide them with treatment, but I really don't think the patient should know. I really don't think that the individual that has the disorder or the differences with their personality traits should really know. I believe the parent should know, but not the individual, because we hold these labels to be true and they become us. Have you ever been in a situation where you have been around a person that has made you feel super crummy, that everything that you've done has been wrong? I'm sure most of us have been around a manager like this, right? Someone that's micromanaging and is looking at everything that you're doing and is saying, you're fucking up, you're messing up here, you're doing this wrong. We become tense and we realize, like, man, every little detail that I'm doing, I am messing up, and everything that I do good is not enough, so I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna keep on fucking up because this is all I know what to do in the perception of this boss, right? Then you go to another environment where you are loved and appreciated for your open mind, whatever it is that you offer, and you are acknowledged for this. and you walk around those people, how do you feel? How does it make you feel when you know that you are good at what you do and someone acknowledges you for that? Can you see immediately the difference between those two experiences? I want you now, if you need to put this on pause, put yourself in two different extremes where you felt like you were unworthy and incompetent, and where someone made you feel crummy, and another situation where you felt beautiful and loved and empowered. Now, we must balance these and be rational and logical about our true character. I'm not saying go on the soul movements and decisions of these two bipolar opposites, but what you surround yourself with, who you surround yourself with, is what is going to be brought out. You know? So if I'm around this beautiful being that sees me for who I am and sees the beautiful side in me, of course I'm going to want to be with that person. Of course it's going to unravel who I truly am to the core. But if at one moment I snap and I'm angry and this is how the person treats me at all times, it's going to make me believe that's who I am. So this is a time for us to reflect on who is around us. It's a time to reflect on the behaviors that we create for ourselves and the decisions that we make. Are they self-sabotaging? Are they in line with our purpose? Are they meaningful to us, or are they meaningful only to others? This is a time to really reflect, and I'm actually going to reflect on this and perhaps listen to this video again and really try to figure out my purpose more fully, because I am in that process. I'm figuring out my purpose as I make this video with you, and it is a process, and I'm actually really enjoying this journey, and I really feel privileged for all those that are viewing, and I hope that I can offer some sort of peace and comfort and positivity in your life, because ultimately I want you to create your life ultimately the way that you want and so desire, because we have that in all of us. There's beauty in all of us, and there is creativity in all of us, and we just have to really zone in and listen to that inner voice and that intuitive nature. So everyone, thanks so much for watching. I do have to ask you, have you ever participated in self-sabotaging experiences? I would really like to know, were you in a relationship that you knew was not good for you, but you did it anyway because you felt like you deserved it, because you felt like that was what you were worth? I would love to know, within your career, within your relationships, within your friendships. So everyone, thanks for watching. I really, really appreciate your time and the support, the undying support. I really, truly do appreciate it. Bye, everyone.